Just ahead on CTV News.
The region is bracing for more winter weather ahead. I'm Bryce Parker. We'll have those updates coming up on CTV News.
Plus, lawmakers rallied to protect Social Security against DOJ interference. And we sit down with the new county executive candidate. Those stories and more on CTV News, starting now.
Good evening. This is CTV News for February 10th. I'm Michaela Newton.
And I'm Mariah Jalad. Thanks for joining us.
Well, don't put those shovels away just yet.
More winter weather's on the way for the region. We could be seeing significant snowfall in the coming days. But CTV's Bryce Parker is in the studio with us with the latest updates. Bryce, what are we expecting?
So Mariah and Michaela, don't tuck away those snow boots and those heavy coats just yet, because tomorrow around noon, we are expecting snowfall that will presumably take us into midday Wednesday. Now, the D.C. area is projected to get somewhere between 4 to 6 inches of snow, with sleet accompanying it late into Tuesday, early Wednesday morning, and temperatures hovering around the low to mid 30s. Now, for tomorrow, PGCPS has already released a statement saying that they will operate on a 2-hour early dismissal schedule, with vendor-managed care programs operating until 4 p.m. So if you're waking up early on Wednesday, don't be in too much of a rush to leave the house. Schools and businesses could be closed or operating on a delay due to potentially wet or even frozen road conditions. Now, as the weather develops, we will be keeping a close eye on how the conditions on the road develop with it. Many county residents were not happy and expressed their concerns over road safety during the last winter storm. Now, earlier we spoke with the Department of Public Works and Transportation, who said that they have already begun preparation. So in the next 24 hours, you should expect to see trucks salting and treating roads throughout the county, hoping to avoid the same road conditions which caused multi-day school closures back in January.
All right, Bryce, thanks so much. Stay with CTV News as we continue to update you on the winter storm ahead. And keep your hands off Social Security. That was the message to the Trump administration this afternoon as Maryland lawmakers led a demonstration outside Social Security headquarters in Baltimore County. The group is calling for protections for Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Now, the rally comes just days after the White House's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, gained access to the Treasury Department's payment system. That move was blocked by a federal judge on Saturday. Protesters want to keep Elon Musk out of the SSA.
Elon Musk, keep your hands off of Social Security.
And in his wicked hunt for vengeance, this president has decided that no target is too small, no family is too vulnerable, and no American is out of bounds. And this isn't just about an attack on Americans who are in this building, but it's an attack as well on the exhausted mother who calls 988 for a lifeline for support in the darkest days. It's an attack on that single dad who has to call out of work because his daughter's Head Start classroom closed its doors. This is an attack on family businesses that didn't get their disaster relief check to rebuild after the flood receded, and an attack on the grandmother who's just trying to stretch her fixed income to feed a nourishing and to have a nourishing meal for her grandkids.
And the protest comes as other attempts by Musk to gain access to sensitive federal data have landed in court.
And Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown has taken legal action against multiple executive orders issued by President Trump. Last month, Brown filed a suit challenging the memo that would have frozen funding from federal grants and loans. And today, Brown sued the Trump administration for cutting $4 billion in funding from the National Institutes of Health. Now, Brown says Maryland will continue to fight against federal orders in court.
These actions and our response are not about President Trump. They're about the harmful and insidious actions that President Trump has taken. We've already won key victories in court, blocking reckless funding freezes, protecting sensitive federal data from misuse, stopping the president's frenzied effort to eliminate birthright citizenship. But the fight is far from over. Many of these victories are temporary as we continue to litigate these cases, and we will do just that. We will fight in court, we will advocate, and we will continue to educate Marylanders of their rights and privileges.
And the Attorney General's office also sued against Trump's employee buyout program that delayed the deadline until tonight at midnight. And the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is the latest government agency to be hit by the Trump administration. Those employees haven't been outright laid off like U.S. aid workers were last week, but across agencies, anxiety is growing about job stability. Representatives in Annapolis are trying to keep up with the constant changes and put legislation into place to protect the state's giant federal workforce.
We are very sensitive to the fact that Prince George's County is home to 30,000 residents that are employed by the federal government. And then when you get into federal contracting, that expands out to about 50,000 residents who are impacted by the federal government directly in terms of their employment. And so we are working on legislation with some of our partners to try to figure out ways that we can help protect our federal workers if they're laid off for whatever reason and need to seek unemployment from the state of Maryland.
And a bill proposed by Prince George's County Delegate Jazz Lewis last week would give laid-off federal employees access to the same loan assistance and unemployment services available during government shutdowns.
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has announced a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports, including from Mexico and Canada. The president made the announcement yesterday on Air Force One as he flew from Florida to New Orleans for the Super Bowl. Trump also said he plans a new conference this week to announce across-the-board reciprocal tariffs on countries that impose import duties on U.S. goods. Now, Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen says he's against that idea.
Been for targeted tariffs to protect strategic industries, and that's why I was opposed to his earlier across-the-board tariff proposals. As to this particular one, I'm going to have to look at the impact on American, on American workers and American consumers.
Earlier this month, the president threatened tariffs against Canada and Mexico before pausing the order. Now, the two countries are among the top 3 largest exporters of steel to the U.S.
And moves on Capitol Hill could mean even more cuts in Maryland's thin-stretched budget. Senate President Bill Ferguson said that if Congress shifts more Medicaid costs to states, Maryland may need to cut more from the budget. The exact amount will depend on how much the current 50-50 Medicaid cost-sharing model changes. Medicaid costs are already a major factor in Maryland's growing budget deficit, and the state receives $9 billion from the federal government that could be in jeopardy. And Ferguson did not rule out changing eligibility requirements to decrease the number of people relying on Medicaid. And you're watching CTV News. I'm Mariah Jalad.
And I'm Michaela Newton. Still to come, a local high school student is now in police custody.
Find out which alarming items almost made it into the classroom after the break.
Mom, did you really need to buy 2 can openers for our emergency kit?
I can't help it. They're 2 for 1.
What's this?
We need to keep our family communication plan safe in case of an emergency.
Thanks, Tita.
Oh, man. Well, good thing we kept all the lights we used for Diwali.
I've got the battery pack.
Keep my phone powered so we don't miss any alerts.
What about game night?
Sounds good.
Oh, we have to get to Mom and Dad's and get them somewhere safe. I've got the evacuation route loaded on my phone.
I've got an updated list of Dad's meds.
And I've got just what we need to get them to take this seriously.
If that doesn't convince them that we thought this through, I don't know what would.
Start a conversation with your family and plan together for emergencies.
Welcome back. A Prince George's County student is in police custody after bringing 2 loaded handguns to school. 19-year-old Jamel Curtis carried both weapons in his clothing to Potomac High School this morning. Metal detectors were triggered by the guns, which were then recovered by PGCTV security. Now, Prince George's police are leading an investigation. Curtis will be charged with multiple offenses, including having a dangerous weapon on school property.
And the Prince George's County Board of Education has passed a proclamation reaffirming its dedication to inclusivity and educational equity. The statement highlights the board's responsibility in protecting students' rights and ensuring that all schools are safe environments for learning and growth. Meanwhile, Prince George's County Public Schools is keeping a close eye on federal policy changes and collaborating with local, state, and school district officials to keep families informed with the resources and support they need.
Well, for one woman, her passion for educating students in science has led her back inside the classroom. This is 7th grade science comprehension teacher Modupe Olafunmaloya, or Mrs. O, as her students call her. She's one of only 4 educators from Maryland to receive the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. CTV News had exclusive access to her 3rd period class and spoke to the award-winning educator.
This is a passion for me. I'm passionate about it. And I want them to learn. I want them to know that they're welcome within the space, they're safe within the space, and for them to know that no child will be left behind. I'll do whatever I need to do in order for them to make progress.
And make sure you tune in to CTV News tomorrow as we learn more about Mrs. O. And before you start dinner tonight, you might want to double check your stove. LG is recalling about 500,000 electric ranges. That's because knobs on the front can be easily turned on by children and pets. Consumer Protections has received nearly 90 reports that the front knobs were unintentionally activated, starting at least 28 fires. 5 of the fires caused extensive property damage, 3 pets have died, and at least 8 people have received minor burns. So to find out if your unit is affected or for the full list of LG stove ranges covered under the recall, visit lgecares.com/range recall.
Well, the Super Bowl isn't just the biggest night in football, it's the biggest night in advertising. This year, brands like Dunkin', Haagen-Dazs, and Pringles paid record prices to get into the game. A 30-second spot cost $8 million, up $1 million from last year. And celebrities cashed in too. Ben Affleck reportedly made $10 million for his Dunkin' ad. During the first Super Bowl back in 1967, a 30-second ad on CBS cost a little more than $42,000. And so to come on CTV News, we're sitting down with another candidate for the coveted county executive seat.
After the break, we hear from Council Chair Jolene Ivey on her vision for the future of Prince George's. Back in a moment.
Most hiring algorithms would scream me out.
Some bosses couldn't see me as a leader.
I've run this place for 20 years, but I still need to prove that I'm more than what you see on paper.
I've been running code as long as I've been able to reach a keyboard.
This is what I do. It's second nature for me, coordinating 100 details at once.
It's the way my mind works. I have a very mechanical brain.
I sold them on my skills.
You gotta be so good they can't ignore you.
My magic is
analytics and empathy. That's how I'm getting clients. You have to have the confidence in yourself to show up and defy the odds.
I am more than who I am on paper.
I never got a college degree. And today, I'm the CEO of my own company. People want to tell me I'm one in a million, when actually I'm one of millions. Stars are all around us. It's time for them to shine.
There are a lot of temptations facing young people today, like electronic cigarettes and skateboarding. Each vape pod can contain the same amount of nicotine as a pack of cigarettes. This can lead today's youth to a lifelong addiction and severe lung damage. Recall and consider the facts before making a poor decision.
The health class film guy isn't the best person to talk to your kid about vaping.
Got a few minutes?
You are. Start the conversation with your child about vaping today.
Part-time job, full-time hustle, all-time Shiro to all of us. You nurture, we listen. You teach, we thrive. You lift our spirits, but we've got to lay down the truth. It's time for you, our Shiro, to stretch for the stars. A free online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today. Start saving more for retirement so you can feel prepared and live your life to the fullest. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
The special primary election for the county executive seat is less than a month away. In the next coming week, CTV will bring you exclusive interviews with each of those candidates.
And joining us in the studio today is candidate and at-large councilwoman Jolene Ivey. Ms. Ivey, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So in a recent forum, you said that the county is in a state of crisis. So if you became the county executive, what would you do in the first 100 days to take that on?
You know, we have so many things coming at us right now, and you turn on the news and you just don't know what's going to come next. So we have to deal with what's happening at the federal level, what is happening with the man who inhabits the White House, and how that's going to affect us and how we can fight back. So I'm doing that right now. That's something, you know, as chair of the council, I'm doing that, and I'm going to continue working with our federal partners. American Federation of Government Employees has endorsed me. That is the labor union for federal employees. And I've already been working with them to, you know, support their work, what's happening in the courts. And the courts have been successful. What's happened in the courts, the cases that have been brought there, have been successful. So we just got to keep up that fight, because people are really stressed out and worried, of course, about their jobs and the work that they do. It's not just a paycheck. It's actual work that people do and they care about, and they want to make sure that they're able to do their jobs and obviously to get paid for that work. And so that's one thing. Mm-hmm. Another thing that's super important is crime. Crime is still an issue. You report on it every day. You just told the story of a 19-year-old who brought 2 loaded guns to school. We have got to work with parents, with families, and the police and social workers to make sure we're dealing with the crime issue, especially as it relates to young people, and make sure that we get kids on the right track and on a pathway to either higher education or jobs, because we can't have any of this behavior in our community. It's just not acceptable. Mm-hmm. And another thing that I know is really important is just the cost of living. Mm-hmm. And as chair of the council, I've already brought everybody together to deal with the rent increases. And so we have been able to put a cap on rent increases, and it's helping people now. And we put an additional cap on for seniors. So that's something we're continuing to work on. But also property taxes. We have to make sure that they don't go up. Mm-hmm. That is, we already have a higher property tax than most jurisdictions in the region, with the exception of Howard County. But Montgomery County's rate is 0.67, and ours is already 1. So our rate is higher, and our rate is higher because we have 70% of our taxes are coming from residential properties, and only 30% from businesses. Mm-hmm. And
I'm sorry, I just want to interrupt you because we don't have as much time, but how can we really get that done in 100 days? You know, what's the priority when it comes to these first couple months that you're going to be in office?
Well, you can chew gum and walk at the same time, at least I can. And we're going to take on all of those things at the same time. We're not going to just do one thing, but meeting with the police, with the school system, and with social workers to get started on that right away, making sure we don't increase property taxes, and that's really got to do with making sure we're bringing in more businesses. Mm-hmm. Because in order to increase our budget in a way that makes sense, we have to bring in more businesses so that we can pay for things without always relying on residences. So those things are important and can be done right away, and I'm ready to get started.
And going back to endorsements, I know you spoke about you getting an endorsement, but I wanted to know, Senator Angela Alsobrooks recently endorsed one of your biggest opponent, Calvin Hawkins. What was your initial reaction to that?
Well, she and I talked about it well ahead of time. I knew that that was her plan. She and Councilman Hawkins have been longtime friends, and I understand those kind of relationships. I don't take it personally.
And you were just elected to the at-large seat on the council. Now, if you did become the county executive, do you think that the county's already tight budget can handle another $1 million special election?
Well, I think that we all have to recognize that there's a cost to having bad leaders in office. And I do want to make sure that you ask that exact question to Calvin Hawkins as well, because he seems to get a pass on that issue. He would also trigger a special election. If the state's attorney won, we would have an appointed state's attorney, and that's not something that people want. So it's just important that we pay more attention to who is elected, because that's what's going to affect our pocketbooks for a decade to come.
Let's switch gears a little bit, talking about increased concerns about education in Prince George's County. A lot of changes could be coming to the blueprint. What are your specific plans when it comes to education in the county?
Well, one thing that we need to do is get the word out more about what we're doing well in our schools. All 5 of our sons went through our county schools. And I know that we have some really excellent programs, but we seem to keep them under a basket. We don't let people know. Like our French immersion program, it's got to be #1 in the United States of America, and no one knows. So, you know, we are doing some things really well. We need to get the word out about that. And we need to learn from those lessons so we can replicate programs that are successful and that are in high demand, so that more of our students have access to them and can succeed. So there are things that we can do to improve things that aren't going to increase costs, and we just need to have the courage to do them.
And you mentioned the cost of living. A big part of that is affordable housing. We hear that there's not enough affordable housing in the county. Do you have a plan to increase that? And what does affordable housing look like to you?
You know, that's a good question, because the reality is, in the DMV, we have the most affordable housing if you look at the numbers. That doesn't make you feel better, though, when you live here and you're struggling. So we need to make sure that, like I said, what the county council, and this was my bill, already has done, which is put the cap on rent increases so that they don't go up dramatically. We were having a real problem with some unscrupulous landlords who were increasing people's rents by, 50 or 100%. I mean, really outrageous. So that's why we put those caps on, and I'm hopeful that that really does help people, because that was the goal. And of course, holding the line on property taxes, and hopefully with the goal of being able to decrease them. That is what we're working towards.
Ms. Ivy, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And the special primary election will be held on March 4th, but make sure you tune in tomorrow. We'll be introducing another candidate, Jonathan White, only on CTV News. But still to come, we have the Monday Sports page.
That's right, and we're going to be hearing from the Super Bowl champs, plus some local college sports updates. Don't move.
I am an athlete.
I am an educator.
I'm an EMT.
A neurologist.
A veteran.
A business owner.
I'm a mom.
We are survivors.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women and doesn't discriminate.
It can affect any woman at any age or stage.
Yet many women don't know it's our greatest health threat.
Encourage 3 women you love to learn more about their risk factors and how they can take charge of their health today.
Having low income can mean making tough choices. Choosing between paying for food or medication or a place to live is a reality for many people. Do you know someone who could use some extra help? Find out about the Supplemental Security Income Program, SSI. You could receive monthly SSI payments if your income and financial resources are low and you are 65 or older, or an adult or child with a disability or who is blind. SSI is money you can use to help pay for basic needs, like putting food on the table, keeping the lights on, paying the rent. It can mean new shoes for growing feet or help with medical needs. Call 1-800-772-1213 or visit ssa.gov/SSI to schedule an appointment or start to apply today. That's ssa.gov/SSI. Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
All right, it's time for your Monday sports page. The big game last night proved to be a big-time blowout. The Philadelphia Eagles handled the Kansas City Chiefs with ease last night in the Big Easy, spoiling the hopes of the NFL's first ever three-peat championship from the Chiefs. The Eagles defense forced Patrick Mahomes to throw 2 interceptions, and after the game, Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley spoke about the Eagles' dominant defensive performance.
I think we had a focus group out there. You know, offense was able to score points, to take advantage of opportunities, you know, just enough to put points on the board, and then defense played their ass off. They played how they played all year, you know, and I truly believe offense wins games, but defense wins championships, and how that defense has been able to play, it's a great testament to them.
You dream about these moments as a little kid, and, you know, it's just amazing to have your family and friends, and especially your family, you know, been with me through it all, the ups and the downs, and here we are, world champs. Big shout out to the defense. They came out and set the tone. We don't win that game without them. And you know, offense, we came out, had a game plan. You know, we knew that the focus was going to be on the run game, and we took advantage of it. We took advantage of it in the pass game. Jalen came out, played big, and it took a team effort. So coaches, everyone in the Eagles organization, it takes all of us.
And the Eagles will be holding their Super Bowl parade on Friday.
And switching to some basketball, the Bowie State men and women's basketball teams had a dominant weekend, defeating conference foe Elizabeth City State in a road doubleheader. The Bulldog men and women will be back in action on Wednesday, where they will take on Virginia Union in Richmond. The Bulldog women are tied for first place in their division with Virginia State, while the men are tied for first with Lincoln. And meanwhile, sticking with hoops, yesterday, the University of Maryland's women's basketball team defeated the Washington Huskies on the road 81-73. They will face Nebraska at home on Thursday, and the men's basketball team captured a home win against Rutgers with a score of 90-81. Both the Maryland men and women's basketball teams hold on to their position in the top 25 national rankings this week.
And wrapping up sports, the Washington Wizards failed to secure a victory in either of their home matchups this weekend. Friday, the Wizards fell to the Cleveland Cavaliers 134-124. And on Saturday, the Wizards lost to the Atlanta Hawks 125-111. The Wizards will try to get back into the win column tonight when they take on the San Antonio Spurs at 7 p.m.
And before we go, let's get a look at our 3-day weather forecast. Tonight will be cloudy. Tomorrow will be under a winter storm watch. It'll be 35 degrees and snow is expected mainly after 1 p.m. Wednesday, snow mixed with rain is on the way. We'll have a high of 38 and a low of 34. Thursday, we'll have more rain and we reach a high of 48.
And for our community calendar, tomorrow, the Oxon Hill Branch Library will be hosting a movie matinee. You might know tomorrow's film. It tells the story of 2 amphibians who form a bond through a wild journey across the bayous of Louisiana. If you guess Princess and the Frog, you might have some friends on the other side. Showtime is from 5 to 7 p.m., but for more information, contact 240-455-5451.
All right, that's all the time we have for CTV News. Thanks so much for joining us.
We'll see you again tomorrow. Good night.
Pick up! Joe, pick up the phone. Open up, man.
Connection saves lives. Reach out and check in on a loved one today.